On July 2nd of each year, the Orthodox Church honors Saint Juvenal, the first martyr of America and one of the pioneers of Orthodox missionary work on the North American continent. Saint Juvenal of Alaska was part of the first group of missionaries sent from the Vala monastery to bring the light of the Christian faith to the indigenous peoples of Alaska. A unique detail in the iconographic depictions of Saint Juvenal, which often sparks the wonder of the faithful, is the presence of 3 seals, animals emblematic of the Arctic region. What is the connection between the seals in the icon and the life of Saint Juvenal, and why did iconographers choose to depict them in his icons? Find out in the following minutes. Saint Juvenal was born in the city of Ekaterinburg, Russia, under the name Yakov Govoruchkin. His destiny would carry him far from his native land on an apostolic mission that would establish him as a pioneer of Orthodoxy in the American continent. The early years of his monastic life were spent in the Lake Ladoga region in northern Russia at the Kunyavesky and Vala monasteries. The year 1793 marked the beginning of a significant Orthodox mission to the native peoples of Alaska. At that time, a group of 8 monks was formed at Vala Monastery, led by Archimandrite Yosif Bolotov. Among them were higher monk Juvenal, Makari, and Stefan, along with 2 laymen, including Herman. They embarked on an arduous journey of over 8,000 miles, crossing Siberia and the Bering Sea to reach the Russian settlement on Kodiak Island. When they arrived in September 1794, they found a poor community plagued by frequent violence, with no church and none of the promised provisions. Despite these hardships and tensions with the local leadership, the missionaries began their work with great zeal and love. Within 2 years, over 12,000 natives were brought to the Orthodox faith. Their success was due to their deep respect for local traditions and their ability to present Orthodoxy as a continuation of the indigenous people's spiritual search. As the mission expanded, higher monk Juvenal reached the mainland in 1796, where he continued to preach the gospel. Through his ministry, hundreds of natives were baptized. However, as he journeyed further northwest toward the Bering Sea, Saint Juvenal disappeared. Although no physical traces of his disappearance were ever found, the oral tradition of Alaska's native peoples preserved the memory of his martyrdom. According to these accounts, while preaching to the Eskimo people, some did not understand his gestures, particularly the sign of the Holy Cross. A shaman, disturbed by his presence and message, ordered an attack. The high monk was pierced with spears and arrows. In this way, Saint Juvenal became the first Orthodox martyr of America. The oral tradition also speaks of Saint Juvenal's great courage. It is said that he did not defend himself or try to escape. When struck from behind, he turned toward his attackers and begged them to spare those he had baptized. Moreover, the native people later told Saint Innocent of Alaska, Metropolitan of Moscow, that after being killed, Juvenal rose and followed his attackers, calling them to repentance. This happened several times until, in desperation, they cut him into pieces. Another account tells that the shaman, attempting to use the saint's pectoral cross for a magical ritual, was lifted into the air 3 times, realizing he was facing a power greater than his own. At the place of Saint Juvenal's martyrdom, a pillar of light was seen rising toward heaven, a sign of his holiness and sacrificial death. Those of you who have venerated the icons of Saint Juvenal may have noticed and wondered about a unique detail. In his icons, Saint Juvenal is often depicted in a boat with 3 seals nearby in the water. This particular element is not coincidental. It appears that early iconographers chose to include it in order to preserve the memory of a miracle that took place near the end of the life of the first Orthodox martyr of America. What exactly happened? Indeed, on one hand, seals are emblematic of the coastal regions of Alaska, where Saint Juvenal preached and baptized thousands of native people. They evoke the marine environment in which the missionary traveled and worked tirelessly. On the other hand, the presence of seals in the icons of Saint Juvenal is also linked to a historical detail. In 1794, Saint Juvenal, together with his disciple Macari, spent 2 months in the Kodiak area teaching the locals about Christ and baptizing them. During these missionary journeys, they traveled using baidarkas, small agile boats made from sealskin. Baidarkas were ingeniously crafted boats adapted to Alaska's harsh conditions and available resources. Their lightweight wooden or whalebone frames were tightly covered with treated sealskin, sewn and sealed with whale fat for waterproofing. The construction required a deep knowledge of traditional techniques. Varying in size, they could carry 1 to 3 people and were designed for speed, stability, and transport. These boats were highly efficient for navigating Alaska's cold, often rough waters, ideal for hunting, exploration, and missionary work. For missionaries like Saint Juvenal, baidarkas were not merely means of transportation, but vital tools for fulfilling their mission. They enabled them to travel long distances, reach isolated communities, and preach the gospel in places inaccessible by land. The fact that these boats were made from sealskin adds a deeper layer of symbolism to the seals in Saint Juvenal's icons, highlighting the adaptability, resilience, and deep connection the missionaries had with the environment in which they served. Thus, the 3 seals in the icon can be seen not only as a reference to his martyrdom, but also as a tribute to these essential vessels, and by extension to the way Saint Juvenal embraced and integrated local culture in order to fulfill his divine calling. In conclusion, we see that the symbols in icons are not mere decorations, but carry deep theological and spiritual meaning. Every detail, be it color, gesture, or object, has a profound significance meant to help us better understand the mysteries of faith and draw our souls closer to God and the saints. Knowing these symbols enriches our spiritual life, transforming the icon from a beautiful image into a true window into the heavenly realm and a living means of communication with Christ, His Mother, and the saints. Thus, by understanding the symbolisms, the icon becomes a bridge between man and God, a gift of holy tradition that accompanies us throughout our lives.